Today we're in small town USA at very small roofing supplier, Bradford Roofing Supply, with the founder Jason. Thank you for having us here, brother.
Thank you very much, Dimitri. It's been a grind. So
It's probably one of the smallest suppliers I've ever been to. Old gas station here, very small lot, but I absolutely love this journey, and I have so many questions I want to ask. Number one is, what made you start Bradford? Give me the origin story, your inspiration. There are so many big players. It's not an easy task to start a roofing supply house.
it is not an easy task, Dimitri. It's playing in the large pond as a small fish has its challenges, and it's going to continue to have its challenges. But I'm one that doesn't quit. I keep grinding. I'm customer oriented and consumer focused, and that's one of the things that drives me. So basically, the start to my journey started roughly early 2000s, 2001, 2002. Started in the distribution side of things as an outside sales rep with one of the larger players in the industry. I'm going to stay away from naming names just to keep on the up and up as far as the legal side of things today. But so I started as an outside rep for a handful of years, and basically just learned the ropes. Had a lot of fun, learned and met so many people that I even still talk with to this day. Ultimately, the roofing family is so tight knit when you really get into it. It's I was just talking to somebody the other day, and we didn't realize we were storm chasing together when I left distribution and went into contracting. We were storm chasing together in Minneapolis, Minnesota in 2007. We were kind of reconnecting over that storm. So that basically my journey is I was in distribution as an outside rep for a handful of years. And then left distribution and went into contracting for nearly 20 years.
How do you get your first couple of customers when you have no brand recognition? You go just by a phone book. How do you start advertising? Who were your first couple of customers?
Absolutely. So initially, my business model was much different than what it is today, Dimitri. So I started this thinking I was just going to kind of grind on some flippers, real estate deals, things like that. So I brought in 25 trucks of B-grade shingles, and it was...
What are B-grade? Explain B-grade to our listeners.
Yes, sir. So B-grade shingles are basically overruns and or warranty defected of the different manufacturers. There is some B grade that is really good quality product, but once it gets mixed in with some of the defective shingles, it just becomes a nightmare. So we would get pallets in that there was nothing wrong with them, because when the manufacturers switch over their lines, sometimes they have to overrun so they don't have colors that blend together. So you might get a couple pallets that are perfectly good material. But then when you get into some of the ones that are defective and you try to start meshing those together, it was a business model that I wasn't proud of at the end of it, and I knew I had to rebrand and go back to the drawing board and kind of come up with a different business plan, and that led me to where I'm at today. So
you wouldn't do it today? You wouldn't sell B grade?
No, sir. No, it's that was a nightmare, not only for myself, for my customers, and ultimately the consumers were the losers in that, because I had realized I was selling to some contractors that were not letting the consumers know that these didn't have a manufacturer's warranty.
No disclaimers.
Yes, sir.
Was it harder to build relationships with manufacturers or roofers in the beginning? Who are tougher to negotiate with?
I really don't have a barrier to entry with either one of them. I've just tried to be very transparent. I've tried to I've tried to stand on my reputation. So I've tried to not burn bridges over the 25 years I've been in the industry, and I've noticed that really goes a long way. I've never exited any of my businesses without paying my bills, And I think that's one of the biggest bridge burners in this industry is if you don't pay your bills, you lose credibility in the industry. So
I know that you are part of quite a few roofing companies. Like, how many businesses have you invested in and have some kind of partnership today?
still to this day, I think I'm involved in five different business roofing companies across the country. And I tend to keep those somewhat to myself, and not only I just don't want to have any of my partners have any blowback from the industry. One of the ones that I'm super proud of and I don't mind talking about is Rio Blanco Roofing in San Antonio, Texas, and my partner Chuck Allen down there. He's another podcaster like yourself. He runs Rio Blanco or Keeping It Rio podcast down there, and Chuck and I are we're on the same page. So. Believe it or not, he started out in distribution. He was a truck driver and a delivery driver in the industry, and then left truck driving and actually opened a branch up for a previous distributor that I was an investor in, and so we've known each other for a lot of years.
I did not know that. If someone wants to start a small supply company today, where do they even begin?
First and foremost, I say good luck. I was speaking to you before about this, and there's no qualms about this. If you're going into some major market, the real estate purchase is obviously sky's the limit on the real estate purchase. I mean, you could be $2, $3, $4, $5 million in real estate, but other than that, I mean, the barrier to entry in the industry, you better have 3 to 5, maybe even $10 million to even think about this. And fortunately, I've been, very blessed over the years, and I've started this venture I have here with no long-term or short-term debt, including my real estate is paid for free and clear. So I've had acquisition offers already that I've turned down because ultimately I want to build something with a legacy to it.
Love it. What's something you thought would be easier but turned out to be way harder?
I would say that these tariffs right now and these price increases are what's a major struggle for me. So the industry in general is usually on a basis with replenishment costs, and that's what people sell off of is replenishment costs, and that's how I've tried to set myself apart from the larger companies. I am selling on my landing costs. Now, I understand that the larger companies that have branch managers and have, hundreds, if not thousands of employees, it's tough to run how I'm running my business today. And I understand that fully and respect their footing in the industry as well. But ultimately, if you think about it, if somebody has 3, 4, 5, 8, $10 million of inventory on the ground, and there's a 10% increase, and say they're a bigger player and they have 100 million on the ground, they just basically made $10 million in profit if they boosted their prices by 10%. And that's a tough pill to swallow. As a consumer, as a professional roofing contractor. Sometimes you got to step back and look and say, these increases are real. Yeah, there's raw material cost increases, and there's truck increases, there's tax increases. There is a lot of increases, but at the same point in time, when and where do we draw a line and say that we still have to stay ethical? We still have to stay within the realm of still being customer service oriented and being honest. Let's just be honest. Let's be transparent. We had our meeting yesterday, and you were saying, let's put all the prices online and let's just all buy with transparency across the board. That gets tough, Dimitri, because not everybody's necessarily on a level playing field. As I told you before, the larger companies tend to be more organized. They send orders out more in advance. So us as a distributor can plan, we can route our trucks more efficiently, so we can operate on lower margins. Sometimes the smaller contractors, it takes a little bit more teaching from my part or from my associates' part to get them to understand that their purchasing power is going to be based on their organization within their organization.
What was here before?
So this was a old Standard Oil gas station from the 1950s. So
Oh, wow.
when they closed that down, the fellow that I bought the place from actually started a mechanic shop, and it was a family-owned mechanic shop for a while. And he was getting up in age, and I don't live too far from here, so I wanted to be close to distribution so I could service my customers. If they come in the evening, I could just pop over, or have folks I know in the community pop over to grab a bundle of caps so they can finish a job, and just be customer service oriented. Obviously, as a small distributor, that's how you have to set yourself aside.
Main Street and everything. How much
Yeah.
something like this cost?
I give $200,000 for the building, so
Wow.
my entry cost is obviously a lot less than being in a big city, Columbus. I would probably have to spend $1 million for something like this that's going to create a lot of traffic. So
How many trucks can you park here?
so we could fit 3 to 4 trucks. I've created a really good kind of friendship and partnership with a lot of the farmers around here, and we actually store some of our other trucks up the road at our secondary location. A farmer right up the road has a very large warehouse, and we have a bunch of trucks of OSB. We have a bunch of trucks of Ridgeven and Ice and Water Shield, and then kind of all of our overruns of synthetic feld and nails and things that we can't keep outside in there. And they also have an outside space that we keep some of our other trucks parked out in their outside space. So
You're probably the smallest distributor or supplier that I have seen. I noticed that all the small guys, they carry either Icor or Certainty. Is that the only 2 brands that sell to small guys?
no, but IKO for me is something of, as a distributor, I'm not necessarily looking about what I'm profiting on the most. As of right now, I do believe that the IKO Dynasty is the best shingle on the market. And not only do I want to sell to the professional roofing contractor, I also want to know that their consumers are being taken care of with the best products on the market.
So you picked it because you believe in quality and this is your brand that you want to represent. You compete, with the big players. You're up against companies like ABC, SRS, Beacon. How do you stay in that fight? I mean, they're so big. They're so unfair. I mean, they can do things to you, like they can drop the price, they can steal your customers. There's a lot of things they can do that you can't. How do you stay in that fight?
Well, Dimitri, I give much respect to my competitors, and I've said it on my social the whole entire time, is they're needed. Small operations like mine here, we can't do hundreds of millions, and that's not my goal, is to do hundreds of millions. So the way I'm staying relevant, the way I'm staying competitive is and I told somebody this the other day, and I said, please don't take this as me being pompous or full of myself, but you get me. You get me. So up until, January of this year, I was helping guys write Exactimates. I was helping them with supplementing. I was helping them with business plans. I was helping them understand the industry. Because this industry is spawns of spawns of spawns, and it's salesmen going out on their own. Some of them know what they're doing. A lot of them don't. A lot of them have no business owning a business. But there's a lot of them that are very astute business folks that need just a little massaging. And that's over the last 6 months, that's been the most gratifying thing to me, is taking some of these smaller contractors that I have and teaching them to be astute, efficient entrepreneurs. Because I always say, I was never a roofer, or I was never a contractor. I that's not me. And all the years I was in the contracting and roofing space, that's not how I classified myself. I always classified myself as an entrepreneur, because I ran things much differently than then we'll call it a chuck in a truck. No pun intended to my partner Chuck down in Texas, but
Love it. So what do you offer different that big guys can't offer?
they can all have service, Dimitri, but ultimately, my kids hate this. I have two daughters, 13 and 15 years old, and ultimately, this is to show them hard work. Everything I do is for that. But I answer my phone at all times. I'm a workaholic, and my work-life balance is what I struggle with the most. But most of my small-time contractors can get a hold of me 24/7 almost. So it's the connection is never over at 5 o'clock.
Love it. Do you feel pressure to scale, to do more? Because there's so many, in this industry, like every time you have storm, you have this opportunity. You just have a storm a couple days ago.
Yes, sir.
Do you have that temptation to go a little bit bigger, or do you always stay lean and focused?
We're planning on staying lean and focused. Ultimately, as I said, my competitors, that's what they're for. This huge influx in business immediately. There's going to be people. Not every entrepreneur or roofing contractor, however they classify themselves, are going to be an ideal customer for me. My ideal customer is going to be that small to medium sized entrepreneur that does. I think in our roundtable yesterday we did with other contractors, I tell everybody I that 1.8 to 2.2 million dollar contractor with the owner and one salesman, or the owner and two salesmen, is my ideal client, and maybe onwards up to like a $5 million roofing contractor. That's my ideal customer.
So you feel like that's the perfect business size?
1.8 to 2.2, sir. I've done this for a lot of years.
So one sales rep, like describe that company. What kind of systems they have? So one person answer the phone calls, business owner and sales rep, 3 people?
2 to 4 people.
2 to 4 people.
2 to 4 people can run a really nice, lean, mean, efficient.
$2 million company. How much money that business can generate for the owner?
If you're doing things right, you should be between net between an 18 and a 24. And that's going to depend on, are you focused on insurance? I'm sorry?
400,000, 500,000 a year?
Yeah, that's very attainable at that. It's becoming more competitive, and obviously we know that the industry is changing rapidly with the way insurance is to retail. But ultimately, I always tell my clients, if you're not at this point in time at a minimum of a 50-50 or maybe even a 60-40 insurance to retail, you really need to take a look at your business model, because a 100% insurance business model is a failing business model these days.
What made you say that?
These insurance companies nowadays, the depreciation and the way they're writing policies in their favor anymore these days with RPS and roof surface payments and ACV policies, and it's becoming a much tougher game. You go to release depreciation as a roofing contractor, you never know when the homeowner's going to get that payment, and that's your money ultimately, and that's your money to pay your people, pay your suppliers, have your pay your personal bills. So the insurance companies know that, and they're stalling more and more on those payments. And there's 60-minute out there with the exact tactics that the insurance companies are doing, the delay, defend, deny, or deny, delay, defend. I think they made sure that book disappeared because you can't even hardly get a copy of it anymore. But there is a copy of that book out there, and if anybody can get their hands on it, read it, because it is a real thing. And obviously, I think you touched on some things previously on the corruption and that side of things, and it's pretty ugly.
How can you tell if a roofer is successful or not successful? What are the signs? So when people come by from you, you see a whole bunch of different people, right? You see lifted trucks, and you see guys who are lean. I love Dave Ramsey. He said that the most successful contractors are the one who drives $1,000 trucks, old trucks, right? Do you agree with that statement? And in your opinion, what are the signs of successful versus not successful?
First and foremost, absolutely, I agree with that. I mean, Business 101 states that multimillionaires tend to drive a single cab F-150. I mean, that's a known fact. So I'm not a Ford guy myself, but I in all my days and I've been able to buy new cars for 20 years now. I've only purchased one new vehicle in my entire life. So I believe I'm going and finding those vehicles where the depreciation has come off them. Somebody's taking care of them. Just bought an SUV last year for myself. Toyota Sequoia, 10 years old. The guy, all he did is pull his boat around. It had 10 years old with 80,000 miles on it. I mean, in mint condition.
How much did you pay for it?
30 grand. And the new ones are going for 90. So it's pay cash for it and don't have payments. That's been my biggest thing. So, and what I try to teach my younger entrepreneurs as well is find a way to diversify. Real estate, rentals, anything other than just be pigeonholed into one industry. Because one industry is, when you're pigeonholed as an entrepreneur in one industry, your net worth is predicated around one thing and one thing only. When you can put money in your Roth or your IRAs and some real estate and kind of diversify and and there's millions of different ways you can diversify, but ultimately to get to answer that question to you is when I hear from my contractors start talking about their rentals or start talking about some of their other businesses, that's when I know that they've made it. They've made it. Yes, sir. Because ultimately, as a successful entrepreneur, they always say a successful entrepreneur can walk away from what they're doing and it's going to continue.
What's the difference between $10 million roofer and $2 million roofer?
Processes, organization, people, bodies,
I notice you have a lot of smaller guys.
I do. And
are they harder to deal with as a clients?
It has its challenges, absolutely. But I think ultimately that's where I want to stay. And the reason I want to stay there, Dimitri, is because that's the most satisfying to me. I can use my vast industry experience to help them and they're going to be clients of mine. If I help them grow from $1.5 million or $2 million to a $10 million contractor, I hope they recognize the fact that I had a hand in that. And if for some reason at some point in time I can't be as competitive on a dollar a square or $2 a square here or there, a dollar a roll of this, that they understand that I helped them, add millions of dollars to their bottom line.
Do you prefer small guys over big guys?
I'm not going to say there's a preference. I will say that the organizational factor of larger contractors is easier to deal with. If they're sending me orders 2-3 weeks out, it's easier for me to route the trucks because we typically like to route the trucks at least a day out, sometimes 2 days out. To make sure we're most efficient, to have big semis and have vehicle, CDL vehicles on the road, it's very expensive, from maintenance to the purchase price to maintenance to insurance, all the way on down to fuel and tires. So to properly make sure we're routing and being as efficient as possible, that comes easier with the larger guys because they realize that and they want to partner with you on that side. So I try to teach my smaller guys that is important if you want to try to get either better pricing or stay at where you're at.
As far as shortages goes, why they're not making more shingles? Do you think it's intentional? Do you think they're creating bigger demand? Because we already have hail this year. I want to hear from distribution side. How does it, they sell everything they produce for the past 10, 15 years. Why not make more?
That's the golden question, Dimitri. I don't want to assume. We all know what assumptions do to anybody. But right now, at this point in time, I think I was just telling you a few minutes ago. The IKO dynasties, they have different run numbers on the side of them. Some of these shingles that I just received right over here, 9068. The 9 represents 2025, and the 68 is the 68th day of the year. So those were just produced in February, and we received them in March. So
when did you buy it?
So these specific shingles we actually purchased on a winter buy, and these were committed all the way from Q4 of last year.
What's the winter buy?
So, IKO has, it used to be all manufacturers used to have winter buys, but with most of the manufacturers on allocation nowadays, they can't do winter buys because they don't have extra production capabilities. But IKO does a winter buy. It allows us distributors basically to buy a few points cheaper. And but we have to commit to lots of trucks. I committed to 56 trucks between the cap shingles, starter shingles, and the field shingles themselves. I brought in 56 trucks, which on a normal truck it's I think around 206 squares. So 56 trucks with everything, it's nearly 12,000 squares. So it's a pretty significant investment on my behalf. So.
But you don't have it yet. So it's still not produced?
I'm still waiting on 20-some trucks to come in, and a majority of that is all black. As of right now, last week, I had, I think, 18 orders go out. 13 out of 18 orders were black shingles.
Really?
So the...
Most popular color?
Absolutely. So
interesting.
Weatherwood was the black of the 80s, 90s, and 2000s. Black by far has taken over the spot for the Weatherwood.
Give advice to a roofer who try to scale up. And is it harder to scale to the big? I mean, I know you think 2 million is the best size, but what advice would you give to someone who's trying to go to 10 million in this market?
This market is tough. And as I told you before, I've been in the Texas market. I owned a roofing company in Denver, Colorado market. I was in the Minneapolis market. I've been in the Florida market. So I know some of the toughest, hardest, most grinding markets in the country. Tougher? I won't say it's tougher, but it's becoming so saturated right now that I would definitely put it along with maybe not a Dallas, because there's one for every mother and daughter in the whole entire city, but it's becoming a very tough market. So to scale in this market, my biggest thing is you're going to have to find recurring business. You're going to have to find the management companies. You're going to have to find the people that are giving you lead sources. Let's face it, if we do a good job, or if the professional roofing contractor does a good job, they hope to not hear from that person for another 20 years. Mm-hmm. Possibly referral base, but them, if stay in their home, they hope to not have to talk to another roofer. So it's all about basically taking care of that customer. Clean up. Because if you're not cleaning the ground and you're not making the job site look spotless when you leave that project, the end user assumes that the roof is sloppy as well.
So market is saturated. Who is coming to the market? Is it private equity buying franchises, or is it smaller guys who are popping up?
I think both. Yeah, there's quite a few franchises. You have the franchises that are across the country coming to the Central Ohio market, but it's a very lucrative market. Unfortunately, the entry to the roofing industry in the state of Ohio is very, very minimal. And I say unfortunately, the roofers that are doing it right, they don't mind this comment that I'm saying, because again, the Florida market, the Colorado market, the Minnesota market, those are punishable upon felony if you get caught doing unlicensed contracting work. Here in Ohio, out in rural areas, there's no permitting, there's no inspections, there's no license. You can tell a homeowner that you're licensed, bonded, and insured, but if they don't do their due diligence, there's really no blowback, especially if you do a decent job for them and they're not checking on you on the back end if you did poor work.
What's your take on private equity coming in? Like in general, like, do you think consolidation is good for the industry, like both on supplier and on a roofing side? Usually, consumer loses. Like that's when I see the restaurants and few other chains, like when someone's getting bigger, it's good for them. They print money, and someone is losing.
Yeah, they're getting bloated.
Yeah.
It's becoming a very bloated industry, in my opinion,
Mhm.
on both sides of things. Ultimately, I think consolidation is something when the interest rates were low was what was happening, throughout the nation and in a lot of industries. I think it slowed down as the interest rates rose, but it's not going to come to a halt altogether because of the high turnover, or the high cash value of things. It's a very liquid industry, and you can create a cash net worth quickly, and that's always very, very, very attractive to PE.
Mm. So, from your experience, still, is it good or bad for the customers, for the industry?
I would say it's bad.
It's bad.
I would say it's bad. And ultimately, I put myself in the shoes of the consumer, because at the end of the day, I have rental properties, I have investment properties, I do flips, and if I wasn't on the wholesale side of things, I would be paying those increased margins, and it's not good.
And you're probably gonna. I mean, think about this. When we have rental property, when we do projects at our places, we don't go to franchises. Like we're entrepreneurs, right? Like I just remodeled my house, and I did not go to any major big player because I know better.
Yes, sir.
We have a guy, we have someone, and it's not that we're trying to find a cheaper someone to do it. Just there's still always combination between the price, the quality, the customer service, all the combined. And I feel like when you go to the chain, I mean, but with that, there are industries. I just replaced the uh, windshield on my company, and I actually like it. It was a safe light. Everybody
Yeah.
knows safe light, right? So I called a few companies. I called one company. They gave me a quote for $900, but I had to wait 10 days. And then SafeLight was 10% more, $1,050, and they could get it like tomorrow, right? So there is a convenience piece that
Absolutely.
you get with the big chain restaurants, big chain like service companies, right? Which is good. The problem that I see in the roofing industry, when we grow, when those private equity buys companies, unfortunately, they don't always invest in service. They invest in sales. It's a numbers game. And I hate it because if you call one of those companies and you're like, hey, my roof is leaking, a lot of them don't do repairs, right? Like that's the problem. So they'll take your insurance paperwork, they'll replace your roof. But when you need a craftsman, tradesman, they might not have anyone on staff who does it.
And that is a piece that's great you hit on that too, Dimitri, because that is one of the things too. I haven't started this conversation with a lot of my smaller guys, but I can attribute a lot of my success in the contracting industry or in the early 2000s to us doing a ton of those 250, or back then it was easier to do a 250 repair when you're a dollar in gas and you're not paying.
Today would be like $800.
Yeah. So, but I mean, even when you have your associates out there and you're doing a gutter cleaning, in our roundtable yesterday, we had a young man who does a great job, and he said he lost money because he did a gutter cleaning, but they did a review for him.
Yeah, that's
and
not loss.
and you were quick to comment about that, and I agree with you 100%. Is if you get a review and you were there for a little bit of next to no time, that's not a loss.
Mhm.
That is a huge win because you provided a service to that customer, and if we have internet-based companies anymore these days, and a lot of lead generation is done through the internet. So that is never a loss. You're exactly right.
How do you guys deliver? I see flatbacks. Do you do rooftop delivery?
We do not do any rooftop delivery. No, we're ground drop only. So my previous distribution experience, we did have like knuckle booms and conveyors and things of that nature. And I was going to purchase a knuckle boom, and I started looking at the entry of a knuckle boom. Buying the truck is not necessarily the dilemma. Is the insurance. As everybody knows, insurance is no pun intended going through the roof, but it's the same way on
How much
those
does it
knuckle
cost?
booms. It was gonna cost me over $2,000 a month to have a knuckle boom on the road.
Just insurance.
Just insurance, just liability insurance, and that's no claims. That's I've seen plenty of.
Because of all of those videos that you see where roof collapses,
Yeah,
have it ever happened in your previous distribution?
it has not.
Has not.
No. That was one of the biggest things.
How many
is
driveways did you guys pay for?
Too many.
Too many.
Too many. And that is another reason why having a conveyor or knuckle boom, you got to get so close to the house, and you're ended up, the semis are on the approaches, they're, jumping over curbs, and you break a couple $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 driveways, and that gets pretty painful as well. So
what's the typical process? You break it, they file a claim, or you just write a check, or
it varies. It got to the point where it was so prevalent that, we were making our contractors sign waivers, and unfortunately they were signing a waiver and they were taking the liability. So I didn't want to get into that position either, where it's kind of a push shove against, a contractor that you've created a partnership with of
Yep.
who's going to pay for it. I would, if we get to a point to where I need to, do some sort of rooftop or on a big like apartment complex or condo association, I can outsource that type of thing. I've got enough adversaries in the industry that I can call on that can take care of project by project. But my day to day is going to be mainly focused on ground drops.
what time do you guys start daily?
I usually start my day at 4 a.m. So I start my day at 4 a.m. Like to get an exercise in normally early in the morning. I'm a single father of two teenage daughters, so I like to get up and get them going, and then I'm mainly focusing on the business in the morning before the phones start to ring, because when the phones start to ring, you're zigging and zagging, and you just never know what's going to happen. It's we try to be obviously customer service oriented, and 911s happen too often. I'm trying to. I deal with a lot of young contractors right now. A lot of guys. They're taking a shot on somebody like myself, but I'm taking a shot on them too, because their history isn't as vast. But that's one of the things I love about this industry, more so than anything about selling these materials. I love teaching. I love to see people win. I love to see people grow. I love to see people be good with their consumers as well. And I think, mainly one of the reasons I reached out to you, Dimitri, is I think we've got differences. Everybody's got differences, but one of the things that I really like is calling out the dirty. Calling out the dirty in the industry. Our industry needs cleaned up. I mean, there's some shit bags out there, and I mean it's just sad to see the consumers be the true victims in all of this.
Let's talk about how roofers pay their bills. Percentage-wise, how many roofers fall behind bills with the suppliers? You've been on the supply end for a long time. And what are the red flags that you might not get paid, or that it'll be a problem to collect?
Flash. Flash. When Flash starts, big trucks, lifted trucks, sports cars. Now I get it. There's success out there, and people like to reward themselves for success, but Obviously, the biggest thing is that money isn't the business owner's money when it's sitting in that account if they don't have their bills paid. That's the company's money. So ultimately, I always like to. We talk to a lot of the crews. If a roofing contractor is falling behind on the supply side of things, first person I'm calling is their crew, because I know a majority of almost all crews around town, especially for my clients, and I want to figure out. Are they a little bit behind with me, or are they a little bit behind with all their salesmen and their crews? Because it's not hard to come out of a small hole, because we are so cash oriented in this industry. But you start getting yourself in a 6-figure hole, or a 7-figure hole if you're a super big company, you're not getting out. And especially if your mentality as an owner has switched to the point where you start creating a lifestyle for yourself that you have to keep up.
How do you protect yourself financially from situation where roofers don't pay?
It's a tough one. So starting out, we're a smaller business, so my credit lines, and again, that's why I like to deal with the small to medium sized guys too, because a large roofing contractor can be into a supplier for $250,000, $500,000 in a matter of a month. Where with the smaller guys, we start with a little tighter leash. We start working with a couple jobs at a time, or a week. We'll instead of a 30-day net terms, we'll go and we'll do it by the week or by every other week. And when we've started creating that relationship, an ACH debit form is another thing of a safety net I'm creating for myself too. I'm making my contractor sign an ACH debit form, so I'm not chasing checks as much. I'm calling them saying, "Hey, you received your invoice, correct? Yes, sir. We're going to debit your account now." So instead of checks in the mail type things, we're going to debit your account, and that'll be coming out of your account in 24 to 48 hours.
So how often do contractors don't pay? Is it like 3%, 5%? Is that more than people think?
I can't really speak with 100% proficiency on that, Dimitri.
Not yet.
My previous experience in distribution was somewhat of a silent partner, and I stayed away from a lot of that knowledge. So I'm getting firsthand knowledge of more and more of this, and it's all a learning curve at this point to me.
I know there's insurance. It costs you 1 or 2%, and when something like that happens, you can file a claim. I know that some suppliers do it. Some people that I talk to.
Yes, sir.
Essentially, it costs you like 1% of your business, but then you lose $100,000 to file a claim. You get it.
I'm kind of a bulldog when it comes to that too, Dimitri. Like I don't really classify myself as super polished when somebody starts to try to stick it to me. So we have lien rights as suppliers, and if I feel like somebody is trying to personally wrong me, it's not just wronging me. It's wronging my associates. It's wronging my family. It's wronging. It's just being wrong.
You're gonna go after it.
I'm gonna go after it, and if somebody doesn't like the way I go after things, then they don't have to buy from me. Point blank. I'm not gonna hold back. I'm not gonna try to sugarcoat it. If you're being a dirtbag and you're trying to be shady, then I'm gonna be just like you are. I'm calling them out, and they can go buy from somebody else, because I'm not gonna allow it to be taken advantage of, because it's not just me. Again, it's not just me. I do this out of a passion. I do this to create an income for me and my family, but I also am doing this to make sure that I can have others be successful as well.
I actually paid few liens because Directorii.com, we offer up to $20,000 in case of if contractor fails, it doesn't pay the bills, we'll step in. So we have contractor actually somewhere in Ohio, I believe. And I remember it was one of the very first claims I paid. This guy, he filed bankruptcy. He was not bankrupt. It was $70,000 job, and he was doing $2 million a year. So $70,000 debt or problem. It's not a problem. If you're an entrepreneur, you'll figure it out. But he chose to file bankruptcy, close his company because he was not ethical at all.
Yes, sir.
And they had a job that he got from Directorii.com, and he got paid on it, but he didn't pay supplier $4,000. And I remember homeowner filed a claim, and we sent them $4,000 to release it because that's the promise. I don't give better recommendation. I recommend Contractor, and he still to this day did not pay us. He made promises. He's like, no, I'll make it right. No, you won't. So very, very sad. But what are you gonna do? Let's finish on give advice to the contractor in 2025 who just getting started, don't know nothing about the industry, just file LLC, all pumped, all like, hey, I'm gonna be successful, sold couple jobs, probably on heaven right now, how easy it was, and give them guide them through their first year, what to expect, and your best advice to the roofer.
Absolutely. Well, first and foremost, if they're in the Central Ohio market, come see me. That's first and foremost.
Obviously.
So no, ultimately, it's knowledge is power. Knowledge is power, and with the day and age of the internet, I tell you what, they can be very, very, very proficient in learning their craft and learning their trade. By understanding installation first. Ultimately, as we said, the barrier to entry in the roofing industry is very, very low. So one of the ways you can set yourself aside is kind of talk technically. Right now, if people are knocking doors, what are they saying? I'll do it for your insurance minus the deductible. Well, what are you doing? We're putting a roof on your house. Well, how are you putting a roof on the house? How many nails per shingle? Like there's probably some of these salesmen out there don't even know how many nails per shingle, or don't even know, what a kickout flashing is, or don't even know what end wall flashing is, or don't know what a cricket or a saddle or any of the flashing. Let's face it, a roof's hopefully not going to leak in the field shingles. It's all about the details. It's all about the flashing. It's all about understanding and upselling, bullet boots and things that go over. Well, my biggest thing, and we sell them too. We sell them all day, every day. But why is the roofing industry still selling standard roof boots, knowing that the neoprene washer around the pipe stack is going to fail in 5 or 7 years in a lot of markets? Why aren't you covering those up with something that's going to last 20 or 30 years along with the roof that's supposed to last 20 or 30 years?
Lack of education?
Yes, very, very much. Ultimately, before you go out there and wrong a consumer, understand that it's very, very easy to educate yourself in this industry. The industry, that is one good thing I would say that's come out of the growth process in our industry. Now, you've posted it plenty of times, fake gurus and this and that. There's a lot of clowns out there that act like they know what they're doing in this industry. But there is a lot of folks out there that are willing to help. When I got in this industry, I was invited by some folks. I was the youngest in the room by 50 years for the first 9 months. Believe it or not, I talk a lot, I know. But the first 9 months, I didn't say anything but my name. I listened. I closed my mouth and listened. And it wasn't, those old fellas were so awesome because they didn't try to tell me what to do. They did not tell me what to do. They told me what not to do. They told me how they got sued over the last 50 and 60 years. They told me why they got sued for the last 50 years. It's all about building that story, building the understanding of your trade and your craft, and being able to perfect it and then grow it.
Love it. Thank you so much. It was awesome. Guys, comment below what you think about the episode. If you have any questions to Jason about running a supply company, comment below. I'm pretty sure he'll be checking the comments and answering. I'll see you guys in the next video.